So in the first part of this exercise, we created an invoice based on these purchases right here. We basically took all these purchases, their prices, and calculated the total amount owed. And it came out to $430.31. And this invoice, was to be sent to the office of your choice. In my example, I chose Fairfax Dental Office, something like that. So this is the invoice based on the purchases that they have made that week. Now, in the second part of this exercise, we're actually going to go deeper and look into the numbers. We're going to take all these sales that we've made and then calculate how much money we're actually making. So if we're collecting $430.31, how much of that money is actually profit? How much of that money is actual profit? Or are we losing money? These kinds of questions. And the other part is we need to look at this data set. We need to see what is the most popular item, what is the most profitable item. These ideas help you make decisions in the future, and they're really, really important. Okay, so this is going to be the goal for part 2. All right. Now, in the sheet that I provided, I gave you something that looks like this. So I went ahead and clicked on Fairfax. I created a new sheet, and I basically, I duplicated these, and then I have this. This is where I'm going to do my profile, and this is my starting point. Remember, this is the price that we're charging, and then this is the cost that it takes. This is the cost incurred on the grocery store. This is how much it costs for the grocery store to produce or to buy this item, right? And the cost is measured by the units. In this case, for example, ounces or pounds. So, for example, it costs about 44 cents per pound to get some bananas, but we sell it by the pound, right? So the very first thing that we need to do is calculate the total cost for all these items, and then calculate the total money collected. Remember, we actually have it already somehow, and then see if we're making any profits or not. Right, so to calculate the cost, for example, we need to multiply this smallest number, 0.20, for example. This is 20 cents per ounce times 30 ounces, right? Because a whole item is going to be 30 ounces, 30 and a half ounces, and its cost is about 20 cents per ounce, right? So to calculate the cost, it's going to be equals to E2 times F2, right? But if we click enter, we're not going to get any values. Why is that? Because this cell holds numbers and words, letters. It can't really be recognized as a number for us to do computation, to do some calculations, right? So we need to do some cleaning here first before we do anything. We're kind of lucky a little bit, because if you see here, there's some form to your data, right? We start with a number and then the unit, and it's uniform here, right? So we can actually use a tool that splits your data into 2 columns or multiple columns. And so ideally what we would like to do is split this number, keep it in one column, and then the unit, move it into another column, right? So in order to do that, let's first create an empty column to the left, right? Basically, I went here and then I created one column to the left, and hopefully I'll move all the units into this column right here. So I'm gonna click on column E, go on data, and go down all the way to split text to columns. This is the tool that splits your text into columns. It takes all the data from one cell and splits it. We'll see what it does in a second. After I click on it, this is the small menu that appears, and when you click on the options, it's asking you to choose I think it's called a delimiter, I think, and it's basically this special case. Hey, how would you like to split your text? Is it by a comma? Is it by a semicolon? Is it by a period? Or is it by a space? Well, if you can see here, if you notice, we have our numbers, space, and then our units. And this rule applies all to the same numbers. So if we click on space, it's going to split, right? And you can see our numbers here and then our units here. The only difference is it sort of wiped out our third column that we had here. It held important data and kind of deleted it. And this is because in this case right here, we had fluid ounces, and these two are separate words. So I'm going to click Control Z on my keyboard. I'm going to undo that change, and then I'm going to try to fix this issue before moving on. Now, all I have to do in this instance is change fluid ounces to FLOZ. Now it's just one word, and it's not going to create an extra column at all. It's just going to move right here to this. And it's going to be the same case for this one as well. Let's change it to FLOZ. Now, this was actually pretty simple. What if your data set, what if you had like hundreds of items? Are you going to be looking at each single word? Are you going to be looking at each separate instance and changing it? No, of course not. That's going to take a lot of time. And so let's go back to the inventory, and let's look for fluid ounces and see an example here. As you can see, for example, these three. Yes, as you can see here, if I had to comb through 150 items, it's going to take a lot of time. In this instance, what you can do is use the Find tool. So click on Control F, and this little menu is going to appear. Click on More Options. This is the Find and Replace tool. We want to find FL space OZ, fluid ounces, and let's replace it with FLOZ, right? So we're finding all these, all the words in here, and we're replacing it with this word right here. You see, it's not a big difference, but it's very, very convenient. And now we're gonna search only for this sheet, because if we do all sheets, it's gonna apply the change to all these sheets that you have here. So I'm gonna put this sheet and then replace all. And now let's try it one more time. Yeah, I think I lost the connection for a second. Should upload back. Alright, let me see. Where is my fluid ounces? It hasn't changed it. Alright, let me there. Lost the connection for a second. Okay, now that I have my text sort of separated and clear, and I only have two words, I can go on data and split text to columns, and now I can choose space. And now, as you can see, all the numbers remained in this column, and then all the units moved to the next column, right? This is going to just make it easier for us to do number calculations. Now, let's click on this one right here. Let's insert, let's insert a column to the right. And let's do the same process for these units as well. So I'm going to select it, go on data, and split text to columns. And if you notice here, if we click on space, nothing is going to happen, right? It hasn't split my data. This is because my data, my numbers, the numbers and the words are not separated by a space. In this case, they're separated by a forward slash, I think it's called, or a backslash. I think it's a forward slash, but it's separated by this symbol right here. And because all the data are separated by this symbol, all I have to do is just use it, and my data is going to be separated. There it is. I have my units. Here. And now I can actually calculate the total cost, right? And the total cost is going to be the size times the cost per unit. It's going to be E2 times G2, and it's again suggesting an autofill for me. You can go ahead and actually do that, but I'm going to show you that if it doesn't suggest an autofill, you can click on the first one that you did and apply autofill like so. And now we have the total cost. All the formulas are copied. Very nice. Now we're calculating all these calculations based on the purchases or Fairfax Dental, meaning that we have to include the quantity that they bought, because this is what we're trying to analyze in the first place, right? So we need to have the quantity here. So I have here a zoomed version of worksheet number 1, and I'm just going to manually enter the values based on what I see here. And remember, as long as I have all the data in the same order, I'm allowed to do that. Okay, so it's going to be 22, 46. Okay, so I just finished writing all the quantities that I have for each product. And now, to find the total cost, all we have to do is just multiply this number right here. This is the total cost for one pizza. Remember, we did all these operations in here so we can get to this final number, meaning that all these values I no longer need, right? I can only now, I finally can deal with this column right here. To make it easier for me to see and work, I'm just going to highlight these 4 columns, right click, and then I'm going to hide these columns because I no longer need them, right? So I'm just going to hide them here. And now I'm only dealing with the total cost. So this is how much it costs to produce, for example, bananas, blueberries, pizza. This is going to be the cost per one item, right? And so if Fairfax Dental Office purchased 22 pizzas and it costs us $6.10, well, let's call this item cost so we don't confuse things. Alright, so the total cost is going to be the quantity times the price that we're paying. So it's going to be I2 times J2. Right? I'm going to click yes. There it is. So these are the costs that we're paying. And then the money collected. And this is going to be the quantity times the price, because this is the amount that the grocery store, the Fairfax Dental Office is paying, right? Very important to differentiate between both. So it's going to be equal to the price times the quantity. There. Okay. Let's do some formatting before we continue. I would like to wrap the text here. Now I have the total cost and I have the total money that we collected from Fairfax Dental. So that means we can calculate the net profit. And the net profit is basically how much we made minus how much we spent, minus the cost. So it's going to be the money collected minus the total cost. Right? And in this instance, it's a negative number, meaning that we lost $2.42 selling 22 pizzas, right? So let's do some formatting here very quickly. Let's make sure that we have the same font, same font size. Let's bolden this one right here, all of them. Change the alignment to the center, wrap text, and put some shade to the cells, color, uniform, and let's add some borders here as well. And we're going to choose all borders. There it is. Alright, so this is basically the calculation that we need to create. I'm going to do an extra cell here. To net profit, and I'm basically going to add all these values here. So it's going to be the sum of, and it's also suggesting what to do. It's going to be from M2 colon M12, right? M12 there, and in this case it's also a negative number. So basically, all these calculations that we've done, everything that we were trying to do, including, you know, splitting the text, all these calculations, we were trying to reach this number right here, right? So our conclusion here is that although we've collected $430.31, our net profit was negative. We lost $2.29 with that transaction, right? So that was the number that we wanted to find out. So let's create a pie chart of items sold by department, and let's create a column chart of total sales by department. So we're doing some analysis based on the departments here. Notice that the departments are categories, right? And so you can organize your data or you organize your numbers based on the categories that are given to you. One thing that we need to pay attention to is that sometimes the categories are going to be repeated. They're going to appear more than once. And basically, you're going to have to count these two values under one category. Fortunately for you, Excel and Google Sheets, all these numbers, they're done automatically. We don't have to do anything. So we're going to create a pivot table to be able to correctly create a pie chart, because remember, we're trying to see categories here. These departments are categories. Now in this example, we only have one repeating categories. In other examples, you might have multiple categories, and if you try to sketch out or draw your pie chart the normal way, it's not going to detect dairy and dairy as a one category. A pivot table will help you summarize your data first before you do your pie chart. So let's go on data and then click on pivot table, and the data range is going to be your sheet, this one right here. And then from A1 to M12, this is the range of data from right here all the way to the end. So basically the entire table. And then you're going to insert it to an existing sheet. You're going to just put it right down here at A15. I think here, just in the same sheet. And then you're going to click create. The most important thing is the range, yes? Yeah, you want to make sure that the range includes the entire table. Create, and now we have something that looks like this, and we have the pivot table editor right here. So what you can do is on rows, click on add. We want to display our data by department. So you can see here all the departments. You can see dairy is just one category, right? And then for values, well, we want quantities, right? So quantity. And there it is. As you can see, it's summarized, or it's summed. It added all of your quantities based on this category right here. And so if you notice before, we have dairy, we had 18 and 5. In here, dairy, we have 23. So now we sort of summed our data, and now we can select this pivot table and then go on insert, chart, and then a pie chart. There it is. And now you can see that our pie chart actually has the correct percentages there. So I'm just going to put it here. And you can see dairy is just its own category, right? Looks good. All right, we're going to do the same process to create our column chart, total sales by department. So this time, what we're interested in, how much the amount of sales, basically the money collected, for each department, right? So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to create another pivot table. That's one way, right? So insert, data, pivot table. Make sure the data range is correct from A1 to M12, and then existing sheet, and let's put it on A30. Create, and now we have our pivot table here. This time we want the rows, as in categories, to be department, and the values are the money collected, right? And so we have money collected by department, right? Summarized for us, like so. All right, very good. So the last thing that we're going to do is select our data, go on insert, chart, and choose a bar chart, or a column chart in this instance. All right, and let's add some labels here. Okay, it looks like we have our column chart, we have the department, and the money that they've collected. Right, and this amount, this number is significant, including this. Notice that, for example, fresh fruits make up about 25% of sales in terms of quantity. So they make about 25% of the sales, but if you compare it in price, I mean, it's not really a lot compared to the refrigerated items, right? But overall, if we were to hypothetically assume that the costs, those were the cost numbers, then overall we have a number, negative 2.29, right? So basically the rest of the questions you can answer because, well, you have the data in front of you. You have it presented and ready to be read, ready to be interpreted, right? So that was the point of the exercise.